Elena Voss had grown up hearing stories about the Blackthorn Pack, but she never believed she would end up standing inside their castle, surrounded by wolves who looked at her like she was already dead. She was the daughter of a blacksmith, raised in a small human town near the northern border. Her hands were rough from years of working beside her father, shaping metal into tools and blades. She was not a fighter, not a noble, and certainly not someone who expected to be dragged into the world of werewolves. But 3 days ago, a conflict broke out between her town's militia and a patrol from the Blackthorn territory, and in the chaos, she was captured along with several others. Now she stood in the great hall of the Blackthorn castle, her wrists bound with rope, her clothes torn from the journey, waiting to face the Alpha King. She had heard whispers about him during the long ride to the castle. Cade Thornwood, a king who ruled through strength and fear, a man whose wolf was said to be more powerful than any in living memory. The guards who escorted her spoke his name, the way people speak of storms, with respect and dread mixed together. The great hall was massive, built from dark stone, with tall windows that let in pale light. Rows of wolves and warriors lined the walls, watching the prisoners being brought in one by one. Elena watched as the person in front of her, an older man from her town, dropped to his knees the moment he was pushed forward, his head bowed low. Then it was her turn. 2 guards shoved her forward, and she stumbled, but caught herself before falling. She lifted her head and looked directly at the throne at the end of the hall. Cade Thornwood sat there, unmoving, his sharp eyes locked on her. He was tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in dark clothing that seemed to absorb the light around him. His expression was unreadable, carved from stone, much like the castle itself. Elena had never seen a person carry so much quiet power without saying a single word. "Kneel," one of the guards beside her hissed. Elena felt her heart pounding, but she did not move. She thought of her father, who always told her that a person's dignity was the one thing no one could take unless you gave it away yourself. She thought of everyone from her town who had been captured, who were now expected to bow their heads and accept whatever fate awaited them. She would not give her dignity away. "I will not kneel," she said, her voice steady despite the fear twisting inside her. Not to someone who rules through fear. The hall fell silent. Even the guards seemed frozen, unsure of what would happen next. Elena expected anger. She expected punishment. She braced herself for whatever cruelty the Alpha King was known for. Instead, something strange happened. Cade's body went rigid, his eyes suddenly wide with something like shock, and then, before anyone could react, he rose from his throne and slowly, unmistakably, lowered himself onto one knee. Gasps rippled through the hall. Whispers broke out among the pack members, quickly hushed by the tension in the air. Elena stood frozen, unable to understand what she was seeing. The Alpha King, the man everyone feared, was kneeling before her. He looked as stunned as everyone else. His jaw was tight, his hands clenched into fists at his sides, as if he were fighting against his own body. After a long moment, he forced himself back to his feet, his expression darkening into something between confusion and anger. "Take her to a chamber," he commanded, his voice sharp. "Now." The guards moved quickly, pulling Elena away before she could ask a single question. As she was led out of the hall, she glanced back and saw Cade still standing near his throne, staring at his own hands like they belonged to someone else. Elena spent that night locked in a small stone room, her mind racing with questions. Why had he knelt? What did it mean? She had heard the pack members' hushed voices as she was dragged away, murmuring words like mate and bond, but she did not understand what any of it meant. The next morning, a young pack member named Sarah came to bring her food and fresh clothes. Sarah had kind eyes, and unlike the guards, she did not treat Elena as if she were something to be afraid of. "You're the one everyone's talking about," Sarah said, setting a tray of bread and stew on the small table. "The one whose refusal made his wolf kneel." "I don't understand what that means," Elena admitted. Sarah hesitated, glancing toward the door as if worried someone might overhear. "Among our kind, a wolf never bows to a human. It's not just tradition, it is something deeper than that. Our wolves are the primal part of us, the part that follows instinct rather than reason. When a wolf kneels before someone, it usually means the wolf has recognized something important. Some call it a fated bond. It only happens with a true mate. Elena's stomach twisted. That's impossible. He doesn't know me. I don't know him. The wolf doesn't need to know someone the way we do, Sarah said gently. It simply knows. But the king, he has never accepted anything without reason. I doubt he'll accept this easily either. Elena did not know what to feel. Fear, confusion, and a strange curiosity, all tangled together inside her. Over the following days, Elena remained in the castle under guard, though she was no longer treated as harshly as the other prisoners from her town. She noticed that Cade avoided her, keeping his distance as if trying to convince himself that whatever had happened in the Great Hall meant nothing. But she also noticed the way some of the pack members watched her, some with curiosity, some with quiet hostility. One evening, she wandered into the castle gardens, needing air after being confined to her chamber for so long. She found a quiet corner beneath an old tree, its branches heavy with autumn leaves. She sat there, thinking about her family back home, wondering if they knew she was still alive. She did not hear him approach until his shadow fell over her. "You should not be out here alone," Cade said, his voice low. Elena looked up at him, unafraid despite everything. "Are you going to punish me for it?" His jaw tightened, but he did not answer right away. Instead, he sat down a short distance from her, his eyes fixed on the horizon. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. "Why did you refuse to kneel?" he finally asked. Elena considered the question carefully. Because kneeling out of fear isn't respect. It's submission, forced by cruelty. I've seen people bow to men who deserved nothing but resistance. I decided long ago that I would not be one of them. Cade turned to look at her, something unreadable flickering across his face. "Do you know what happened in that hall?" "Your wolf knelt," she said. "Sarah told me what it means, but I still don't understand why." "Neither do I," Cade admitted, his voice quieter than she expected. "My wolf has never done anything without my command, until you." Elena studied him, seeing past the crown and the fear his name inspired. For the first time, she saw exhaustion in his eyes, the weight of ruling a pack that respected strength above all else. "Maybe your wolf saw something you refused to see in yourself," she said softly. He did not respond, but he did not leave either. They sat together beneath the tree until the sun disappeared behind the castle walls, and for the first time since her capture, Elena felt something other than fear when she looked at him. In the weeks that followed, Elena began to see a different side of the Blackthorn pack. She noticed how some of the younger wolves were mistreated by higher-ranking members, forced to serve without any voice of their own. She spoke up when she saw injustice, refusing to stay silent, even when warned that speaking against pack hierarchy could bring punishment. Cade began seeking her out more often, sometimes under the excuse of discussing pack matters, other times without any excuse at all. He watched as she defended a young servant boy who had been unfairly blamed for a broken dish, taking the punishment onto herself instead. He saw how she treated everyone with the same respect, regardless of their rank within the pack. Slowly, something shifted in him. The rigid control he held over himself began to soften whenever she was near. He found himself listening to her opinions, valuing her honesty, even when it challenged his authority. But not everyone welcomed this change. Draven, the pack's beta, had long awaited an opportunity to challenge Cade's rule. He saw Elena as a threat to the pack's traditions, a human who dared to influence the Alpha King's decisions. He began spreading rumors among the pack, whispering that Elena was manipulating Cade, weakening his leadership through false claims of a mate bond. One night, Draven orchestrated a plan to remove Elena permanently. He arranged for stolen pack documents to be planted in her chamber, framing her as a spy, working against the Blackthorn territory. When the documents were discovered, the Pack Council demanded her immediate punishment, calling for her to be executed as a traitor. Cade was informed of the accusations, while attending a meeting with Pack elders. His first instinct was disbelief, but the evidence presented seemed damning. Still, something inside him refused to accept it without speaking to her first. He found Elena in her chamber, guards already stationed outside, waiting for his final judgment. "Tell me the truth," he said, his voice tight with restrained anger, though she could see it was not directed at her. I didn't do this, Elena said firmly, meeting his gaze without flinching. I have never once tried to hurt your pack. I only wanted to see fairness within these walls. Cade studied her for a long moment, searching for any sign of deception. He found none. Instead, he saw the same unwavering honesty that had first drawn his wolf to kneel before her. I believe you, he said finally. He confronted Draven that same night, demanding the truth behind the planted evidence. Draven, confident in his plan, denied any involvement, insisting that Elena's guilt was clear. But Cade had learned enough about deception from years of ruling a pack full of ambition and rivalry. He ordered a full investigation, uncovering witnesses who had seen Draven's men slipping into Elena's chamber days before the documents were found. The truth came out before the entire pack council. Draven's scheme collapsed under the weight of evidence, and his attempt to seize power through deceit left him exposed before the very pack he sought to rule. Cade stood before his people that night, Elena beside him, her wrists finally free of any binding. He addressed the pack with a conviction none of them had heard from him before. For too long, I believed that strength meant demanding submission, he said, his voice carrying across the silent hall. I believed that fear was the foundation of loyalty, but I was wrong. This woman refused to kneel before me, not out of disrespect, but because she believed in something greater than fear. My wolf recognized that truth before I ever allowed myself to see it. He turned to Elena, his expression softer than she had ever seen it. I do not ask you to be my queen because tradition demands a mate, he said. I ask because you have shown me what true strength looks like. Strength built on courage and integrity, not fear. Then, in front of the entire pack, Cade Thornwood knelt before her once more, this time not as his wolf's instinct but as his own choice. The hall was silent for a long moment, before murmurs of astonishment spread through the crowd. Some of the older pack members looked uncertain, unsettled by such an unprecedented display from their king. But among the younger wolves, and those who had suffered under the pack's harsh traditions, something like hope began to stir. Elena knelt down in front of him, meeting his eyes at the same level. Then I accept, not as someone forced into this world, but as someone who chooses to stand beside you. From that day forward, the Blackthorn pack began to change. Cade ruled with a firmer sense of fairness, listening to voices he once ignored, valuing loyalty earned rather than loyalty forced. Elena became more than his mate. She became a symbol of what leadership could look like when built on respect rather than dominance. And though whispers about her origins as a human and a captive never fully disappeared, no one within the pack ever doubted the strength she carried, or the quiet courage that had once made an Alpha King's wolf kneel before her.